Hi, I am Janet Alvarado. I am a Staff Sergeant in the United States Air Force, and I'm here to inform you on my job in the Air Force as a battlefield weather forecaster. Whenever people hear that I forecast the weather, they either assume that I'm pointing to a weather screen or that I do not need to be correct in order to do my job properly. I'm here to tell you that that is actually not at all the case. There's much more to my job than one might think. When I tell you my job in the United States Air Force is to forecast the weather, what would you think of? Would you think of a silly weather guy who adds a comedic element to the everyday news? Or would you think of all the incorrect weather forecasts that have affected you or your plans? Say it's supposed to be sunny outside and then it ends up raining on your picnic or you're going to a park. But the most common element of what people think about when they think about my job is that they just truly don't understand the full extent of it. They usually just think of what's in their box, what's in their frame of reference. It's really usually only the guys on the television. But to better understand the extent of my job, a good place to start is the immense amount of training that we have to go through. To be a battlefield weather airman, there are many different types of training that one must complete. First and foremost is one that applies to all military members, and that is basic military training. When I went through basic training, it was only around 6 weeks long, but it has been extended. The intent of basic training is to introduce you to the military lifestyle, to transition you from civilian to military with ease in a very short amount of time. They teach you about rank and structure, just the overall structure of the Air Force, customs and courtesies, like how to salute or how to march and things of that nature. The next kind of training that is more specific to my job is our technical school for weather forecasters. And this is very broad weather forecasting. This is an 8-month-long course which trains airmen to be able to forecast the weather in a timely and accurate manner, as well as how to observe weather elements. This is one of the longest technical schools that the Air Force even has, and is also incredibly difficult. There's a lot of science involved. It's not just guessing. There's just a lot you have to study for. As you can imagine, in a 9-month-long technical school, that is it's Monday through Friday for more than 8 hours. It's quite intense. And then the final training that distinguishes me as a battlefield weather airman opposed to a typical weather airman is the combat skills training course in Florida. The difference between a battlefield weather airman and a general weather airman is that general weather airmen typically only support Air Force aircraft, which is usually going to be your large airplanes and your jets. But for a battlefield weather airman, they typically support Army aircraft, which most times is rotary wing, also known as helicopters. And they're usually much smaller airframes and are much more affected by weather elements than most typical Air Force aircraft. According to Airman First Class Joshua Green, the course is designed to train battlefield weather airmen to live and work alongside the Army and get around combat training. This course trains airmen how to adapt to an Army assignment and also to be prepared for any situation that we might find ourselves in. They trained us on different weapons, convoy operations, and Army rank and structure, which is definitely different than Air Force. We're supposed to be able to ride in a convoy and know what's going on. We don't want to be a detriment to our Army brethren. We want to be able to help if they need it, and we need to be knowledgeable of what they have to go through, what they're trained on, and that's basically our course to be trained on those things. It's like a mini Army boot camp. With a greater understanding of the training I must go through in order to perform my job, we now move on to the impact my job has on military operations. Weather forecasters have a lot more responsibility than most people could ever imagine. According to Lieutenant Colonel Gerald Sullivan, battlefield weather airmen provide timely, accurate, and relevant environmental intelligence to conventional U.S. Army forces throughout the area of operations. Sun Tzu, author of The Art of War, also said, know the enemy, know yourself. Your victory will never be endangered. Know the ground, know the weather. Your victory will then be total. As mentioned earlier, we are required to give accurate reports of expected conditions. In combat operations, weather is extremely important, especially for helicopters, as I mentioned earlier, which are more sensitive to weather than larger airplanes. In the unforgiving terrain of Afghanistan and also when we were in Iraq as well, weather can make an already hostile environment even worse. I also mentioned that it has to be timely as well. What good is an accurate forecast if you don't get it to the pilots in time for their takeoff? Now that you've been informed on the training and the responsibilities of a battlefield weather forecaster, I hope you have a better understanding of what my job entails. I hope that now, when you think of a weather forecaster, military or not, that you understand that it's actually much more than just guessing. Just because they are weather forecasters, like myself, does not mean we are on TV.